back up. But I'm going to take this 4-inch pipe and bring it up and bring it over to the tank, and I'm going to rotate it and which axis will I turn it on? The x-axis. So I'm going to hit R and X and rotate it 90 degrees. And with that, if I come above the tank, I can take my 4-inch pipe and move it where I generally put in my feed pipe. And it's way too short, but that's where scale comes in. I can scale it in Z and make it, and I'm not using any exact figures with this. This is not engineering. This is just eyeball for animation. Scale it in Z and move it down GZ and see if it went into the tank, how high above the tank would it go. And it's supposed to go a total of 8 inches above the tank. So I'll take my reference piece of 4-inch and bring it up, and I'm going to rotate this one in X by 90, and knowing that it's a 4-inch would be the diameter, let me move it over. The question is, if I rotate, actually rotate it again, let me rotate it in the x-axis. I shouldn't have done what I did. I'll rotate it in X by 90 again, the way it was, knowing the diameter is 4 inches and that we want 8 inches above the, oops, it's in local, I need to be in global now. Grab it and move it down in global Z and bring it alongside. So we do want 8 inches water column above the digester, and that means that we want basically twice the height of this. So if I hit Shift D and now move this in Z above it, that's 8 inches if this is a 4-inch pipe, which means I want this to be brought down to there for my height. It can always be a little over, but then it's too high for you to pour digestate in. So the best way to make this move down more precisely is not in object mode with scale, but is to go tab into edit mode and then select off of it and grab the top vertices and then hit G for grab and Z and just move them down. And that works out pretty nifty nicely. So you can manipulate like that for eyeball. And that's cool. So that's going to be the, go back into object mode, go into solid. That's the way the pipe is going to go, and that's where it's going to go. But again, we want to use a Boolean, let me move these out of the way, so that there's a hole in the tank for when we show how to build the tank. So once again, you click on your tank and you tell it down here in modifiers to add the Boolean. And we will select this PVC pipe 4-inch, and it's cutting a Boolean. Although, let me undo that for a second. In fact, I haven't even applied it, so come on. What we want to do, of course, is go into the Z and just see if we've placed it in a place where it will make a good hole. And probably the best way to do that, just to balance it out over a square there, and make it so that when it punches the hole, it doesn't distort many of the other meshes. It still may have some distortion, but we can hope. So we've got this going down. Another thing, well, let's just do this first. So we've got that, and we want to pick the object being this one and apply the difference Boolean. And when it's applied, we end up with Oh my, what did it do? Well, that's weird. Looks like that's all one object. So something bad happened here. And we have to figure that one out. All right, let's try this again. We're going to select the tank, and then we're going to add a modifier, and we're going to make it a Boolean and make it difference, and then we're going to select this pipe. And when we apply it, it should be that we can now move this pipe out of the way. But it's doing this weird thing. That's not a difference. Okay, there's something wrong with the geometry of the stuff that came in from 3D Warehouse. Not good for punching holes. Let that be of note. We're not going to use that for punching holes because it uses weird geometry. It's too complex, and so what we have to do is make a cylinder for our punching that is simpler, and then we can use the 4-inch pipe, but yeah, too complex, those objects that come in. We use them more for reference, it looks like. So what I'm going to do is, because of that disaster, which I just erased, I'm going to not use this pipe as my hole driller. I'm going to create a 4-inch cylinder. So add mesh and then cylinder. There's my less complex cylinder, and scale it way down. And let's look at it from the top. Bring it over to the cylinder there that we have, and scale it down and keep moving it until we can get it scaled to be the same size as the reference cylinder. And yeah, so there it is. And as long as it is the same size, then I can use this reference cylinder and move it down where I want to put the pipe. So let me move these both over to the right spot. And let's see, I'll bring the feed pipe is best in about here. But I'm going to move this whole thing down deep in until the cylinder that I just created is going to cut the hole. And I'm going to call this cylinder here, this one, not that one, that one here, I'm going to call it reference, or for PVC 4-inch cutting cylinder. And now when I take my tank and add my Boolean and then hit the cutting cylinder, oops, I didn't want to do that. I want it to be in my tank. This one here, I'm going to pick this cutting cylinder as my way of cutting it, and then hit apply, and that should have cut out a hole, and it looks like it did, because if I move this way down, then you can see I have a nice hole there, 4-inch hole. Alright, so having done that and have a hole there, I can of course now move my pipe into place, and as we saw, I had already sized it so that it's about 8 inches water column above the tank, and it's in its hole. Alrighty, now I need to do the same thing with a 2-inch pipe. Let me save this. Alright, so I'm going to have to do the same thing with my 2-inch pipes, and I'm going to lift this one up and bring it over to the digester, and of course I'm going to rotate it in X by 90 degrees, and I will take this pipe and I'm going to make this 2-inch pipe. It goes on the other side of the digester, and we'll put it over here about, maybe we'll put it here, yeah, put it here. And we will make it long enough so that it is, where this is 8 inches water column above, it's also going to have a funnel. So we'll make this one 8 inches as well, and then when we put the funnel, then the feed pipe will be higher than the effluent pipe, but it'll still have enough pressure because of the 8 inches of water column so that it will force the gas out. So of course I can stay in object mode, and I can hit S for scale and scale it in Z, and I can keep doing that until I think I have something that is reasonable. Hit G and Z and move it down and hit S and Z. So that's the sort of the quick and the dirty of it. And whoopsie, I want to go back into wireframe. All right. And hit G and Z and bring it down to the bottom of the tank where it belongs. Is it actually the same size as this one? Well, it is almost there, but here's where I mentioned that you go into Tab and then select just the top of it, and then hit your G and Z and then make it down just a little bit and a little under, because we're going to put an elbow on it, so we can actually go a little lower than that. And then hit Tab out, and we're in the object. Now, to make the hole, we don't want to use these SketchUp models because they're such a mess, as we just saw. So I'm going to go and add a mesh and add a simple cylinder, which comes in really big over here. And I'm going to come in the Z mode, and you can just see down here all the keys that I'm pressing. So you can learn, and I want to scale this down nice and small and come over and then zoom in and place that center dot right over the center of the SketchUp model of the 2-inch pipe, and then scale it down until I get to what looks like a 2-inch pipe. And that's probably pretty good. Let's see, it's way up there now, so I'm going to hit G and Z and bring it right down. And that's okay, I think. It looks all right. Yeah, but that pipe was too complex. So now I'm going to take this pipe, hit G and Z, and bring it right down into the tank. And now that I've got that pipe there, which is a very simple pipe, I will do once again select the whole digester, add modifier, pick Boolean modifier, use a difference modifier, take my eyedropper and pick the cylinder that I just created, which ain't showing up here, so maybe I have to find, let me find that cylinder in here. There it is, cylinder. I'm going to call this PVC 2-inch cutting cylinder. And having that, now I'll click on the tank and I'll choose for my Boolean the PVC cutting 2-inch cutting cylinder, which is there. So I'll hit on the eyedropper and go up to the cutting cylinder and select that and difference. Remember, not intersect or union, but difference, and apply it. And now I can get rid of this, move it out of the way. It's a reference tool. Select the pipe that I'm going to be working with, but as you can see when I bring the pipe out, there is a hole in there. So the tank now has a 2-inch hole, which is fine. There's another hole that this pipe needs, and that is going to be, it has to have a hole in the center. So when I bring it back in to the tank, I do want to punch a hole where the effluent comes out. And I'm going to make a copy of my cutting cylinder for 2-inch, and I'm going to, so I duplicated that, I'm going to move it over here, and I'm going to rotate it by 90 degrees in X. And that's way too big. So I'm now going to scale it, and scale it in which axis? Well, all the way over, but I want to scale it by 0.5 because I want it to be a 1-inch hole. So I'm going to go S 0.5 and then left click, and now I have a little stub inside there, which I'm now going to scale in the y-axis and make it like a punch-out plug. But I don't want to punch the whole thing out. I'm going to move this over in Y so it just punches on the opposite side of the tank. And in fact, I like to put my hole facing the corner in real life in the tank. And there's two ways to do it. One is to punch and rotate. The other is to move it. It's easiest just to punch and then rotate the cylinder. So I'm going to pick this pipe, and I hope this works because they're such complex meshes. And I'm going to add my modifier, which is my Boolean, and I'm going to select that cutting cylinder and apply it and hope. So now when I click on it, what happens when I pull it out? Did it make a hole? And did it make a hole? Kind of looks like it made a hole. Kinda. I guess we have to see by, let me move this out further so it's out of the way. Click on this and yeah, there's a hole, but is it a good hole? It's kind of like weird. Let me see if when we go into the modeling, if you can actually see it in a solid. And the only way to do that would be to pull this up and out and then look at it. And there is a hole. Definitely there is a hole, but is it skinned right? Did it pull it out of everything? So one thing to do is I can change the color of this, and PVC pipe would be, what material would it be? I have it in here as my IBC tank color. And is there a hole there or not? Looks like I punched it, but it also looks, so you have to go into edit mode really to see. And the edit mode shows some weird lines here. And I'm going to go to the edge and see what they are. If I go into edge mode and I click, oh, it's not letting me click on those edges. Those are in the back of the material. It's fair enough. I mean, it does seem like there is a hole there. One way that I can definitely see if there's a hole probably is if I take a light. So if I add a light and put that light, that point light in, and where did that point light go? It went there. And then take that point light and put it on top of the pipe so it's inside the pipe, and then go to rendered. What do we see? Do we see a hole? Is it brighter inside? And maybe I have to change the light color so I can really see if there's red light coming through. Yeah, it seems like if I make that light smaller, increase the power, and make the radius of the light really tiny, then we can kind of see if there is an actual hole in there, because the light's inside. And if I change the type of the light to a spotlight and I rotate it in the, is it the x-axis? Then you can see if the light is shining out or not. So yeah, it does appear that I did punch a hole. not super satisfactory. So once again, I'm not satisfied with something that has so much complexity that it makes it hard to see if there's a hole. What I'd rather do is, and I'm going to get rid of this light, I don't need that light, I would rather replicate this pipe in more simplistic terms. So that piece that I made for cutting, which ended up where? It ended up somewhere around here. Where did it go? I have my cutting tool. It's called PV 2-inch cutting cylinder. There it is there. If I take that cutting cylinder and I actually made this one even smaller. This was the PVC 1-inch cutting cylinder that I used to make the hole. So I'm going to distinguish those. But if I take this PVC cutting cylinder and let me go back to wireframe because it's easier to see stuff. You don't lose stuff as easily in wireframe. And go to that cutting cylinder and let me duplicate it because it's just a regular cylinder, but bring it over to the pipe here and just make it the same height. I think for our model, even though it doesn't have any dimension, it's better. See, what they did here is they modeled dimension to make it thicker, and I think what I can do, which is better, is just do a cutout like I did with the tank. So what I'm going to do is take this and move it next to this. Let me make sure that it's in the right position by looking in my different aspects. Yeah, so it's sitting there, and I'm going to go into edit mode and select just the bottom vertices, and I'm going to drag them down in GZ, make it as long as the other one, roughly. It's a little bit short, a little bit more in GZ. So I've made my own cylinder that's the same size as their cylinder. And having done that, if I go to solid, my cylinder is a lot less complex. Then what I'm going to do is the same thing. Since this is a solid cylinder now, you can see it's not hollow like this one, is I'm going to take this and I'm going to duplicate it and scale it in a little bit to make a pipe that is inside another pipe, and hope that I've made it the right size. Yeah, that looks like the wall thickness will be fine, and the wall thickness is fine there. And then I look at the other side. If I do Control 1, I get, oops, not Control 1, Control 7, I get to the bottom. And I need to be in wireframe to see it. So yes, I can use this with a Boolean to carve out the center and make this hollow. Although it should stick out the bottom, and it's not sticking out the bottom. So I want to go back into the side view, and I want to go into tab and deselect it, just select the bottom vertices, and continue my migration downward because I'm going to use this to cut things out here. I also want to do the same thing from the top because I want to make sure I cut out the top okay. So I'm going to grab this and bring it up a little bit. Now I have something that's going to punch things out. I call it my PVC 2-inch hollowing tube. Let's just call it that, whatever. And my actual cylinder here is now going to be changed to PVC pipe 2-inch TH. And having that, I can now select just that pipe to get out of edit mode. The 2-inch pipe is this one here, and I'm going to say modifier, add, oops, modifier, there's modifier, add modifier, Boolean. Tell it the Boolean I want to use is the PVC 2-inch hollowing tube. And when I do that and I hit apply, I can go to the hollowing tube and remove it, and sort of lo and behold, when I go to solid, I've created a hollow tube, which is much less complex, you can see, than the one that came in from SketchUp, which is a total mess. I no longer need the SketchUp one, but I'm going to keep it here just for the time being. I do want to make a punch out a hole in this one, and so I've got to find my little cutting tool thing there that I had, and I take my pipe, and I should be able to find in the wireframe where the hole is, which is here, and keep zooming in. And now when I drop it down in Z, it goes straight down, and I can move it up a bit, and I know where I want to punch it because I only moved this thing back. I want to punch it about halfway through, so I'm going to go and move this in Y, GY, move it in to punch out that hole. I'm not going to punch it all the way through because I don't want to penetrate the other side. I want the slurry to have to go around the pipe in order to get in. So here I'm going to pick this one, and I'm going to add a modifier. It's going to be a Boolean, a difference engine, not an intersector union. I'm going to say I want to use this guy, which is not it, which is the PVC 1-inch cylinder, and I want to hit apply. And now when I move this out, what you should see in the solid, if I lift this up, is we have a hole. And it's a much neater hole. You can actually see it as a hole now.
Yes.
So that is a much better look, and I want to make sure that that hole, when I go from the top, I want to make sure that hole is not facing forward, but I want it to face the corner. And that would be a 45-degree turn. So I'll take this pipe, and I will tell it that I want it to rotate in the z-axis by 45 degrees, and I hope I did the right 45 degrees. Yes. So now you can see that it's facing the corner here as far away from the feeding tube as possible. And so when I go back to this and go to solid, there it is facing out. And with that, I can now go G and Z and move it down in the hole. There's just one big problem with the holes that I've made, and that is that they are actually too small. And boy, was that stupid of me. I just realized I wasn't thinking of uniseals, because to do this I really need a uniseal. And the uniseals are a different size. They're 1 inch larger. So I'm going to go back to 3D Warehouse, and I'm going to put in 4-inch uniseal. Okay, nothing happened there. And a uniseal. There's my uniseals. There's a uniseal. It's a bit small, but it's the only uniseal they have, so I'm going to have to make that the right size myself. I'm going to download this as a Collada file, and then I'm going to go to my folder and go to my downloads, unclick this uniseal, cut, go to my Blender files, my 3D models, paste it, and then unzip it in here, and then come in and change the model name from model to uniseal, and close this up, go into Blender, and I'll say to it, I want to do an import of a Collada file, and that import is in the uniseal folder, uniseal, and somewhere in here uniseal came in, but where? Where's my uniseal? There it is, sitting on the floor over there. Now, it's also hugely complex, like all of these silly files. So first thing to try is to simplify it by joining all its meshes together by doing Control-J. And it worked. Sometimes it doesn't. Then, when you look at the actual instance of the uniseal under SketchUp, change the name and call it uniseal. And then note that in the uniseal folder that came in, it came in with a stupid SketchUp camera that we don't want. See if you can delete it without something horrible happening. Something horrible did not happen. All right, so that's the uniseal. And there's also this reference point here. I found that you should go in there and say in the object that you want to set the origin to the geometry, and it goes to the center. That's going to make it a lot easier to use. The other thing to do with a uniseal before we do anything else is give it a color, and it's got no color. It's got some weird colors of its own. I'm going to take out their color because I want mine to be black. So I use black uniseals. So bring it down to black, and then call this material uniseal black. Now that I've got it colored black, it'll be easier to see. Now, move it. Oh, yuck. What did it do? What's that stretch line for? Well, that's weird. It's connected to some weird line here, and I don't know what that is, so I'm gonna... It's probably some parenting line. Yikes. See if I do Alt-P, clear parent, and keep transformation. Ah, it went away. Okay. So now I can move it about. And I'm going to move it over to the 4-inch hole and zoom in and move the uniseal there. And I got to make sure I'm in the right place in terms of the height. It's way down at the bottom of the tank, so G and Z again is your friend. Bring it up. Now look over, and the black isn't showing up. It sometimes takes a while for Blender to get it, but it is black. If you look at material, well, it's supposed to be black. Well, it's not showing up as black. Why? Maybe because this material is still in here, so let me delete that. Yeah, that makes it a little bit better. There it is, it's black. All right, so I only have one color, and that doesn't matter to me. I'm going to now scale this up so that it hugs the pipe, which is all fine and dandy if I'm looking straight up at this, but it's not yet fully there. You wouldn't see anything in the top orthographic, so scale it up. Boom. That is what a uniseal should do, except it's way in the wrong position. No, it's okay. All right. It's not flush with the tank, so in this case, I'm going to bring it down in Z. That's what the uniseal does. So that uniseal is in place, but the hole is in the wrong. It's just wrong. So what to do? Well, we got to punch a bigger hole, or we can grow the hole that we have, and I'm not sure which is the best thing to do right now. Let's see. If I select the tank and I go into Tab and I hide everything, hide, no, Control hide, no. What do I need to do here? I want to find my uniseal, and I want to actually hide my uniseal for now. Or do I? No, I want to hide the pipe. So the pipe I'm going to hide with H. All right, the pipe has been hidden. The uniseal I'm going to lift up, and I note that the hole is too small for the uniseal. So is there any way to grow the hole without recutting it? Well, if I go into Edit of this tank, you can see the hole there. Maybe I just need to move the uniseal over for now. And go to the tank. If I select all those all those vertices by using the C or circle tool and selecting them, and then hit escape, so I'm out of it. I also have holes in there that I didn't get, vertices. So let me do this again by going into the wireframe mode where I can get all my vertices, hitting B, no, not B, I don't want bounding box, hitting C, and select just the holes of the hole, and hit escape. Oh, shoot, I need to do it again. C, and come around, and alright, hit escape. Now, I've selected all those holes, they're all looking good. Come into orthographic view and go scale. Yes, I can scale it up, except then it gets really sort of weird. So hopefully what I can do is scale it to the size of my uniseal. But to do that, I got to move my uniseal in place. So what I'll do is I'll take my uniseal over, move it over the hole, bring it down, and then flip it over. So I'm going to rotate it in the y-axis, rotate y 180 degrees so it's upside down, and then I can move it up G and Z, and you can see that it's actually sized to the interior diameter of the uniseal because we used a pipe that was the interior diameter of the uniseal. But when you're cutting the IBC tank, you have to compensate for the flange, which is this part here, which is larger. So my trick is going to be to select my hole and bring that hole size up in scale so that it becomes the size of the flange of the uniseal. And that was too big. I just did that wrong. I shouldn't have done that. It should be scaled down then. I think it's, could it be this size? That's not too bad actually. If that works, then when I hit tab, then my uniseal, when it goes down, actually fits in that hole. Except, what did I end up doing? I ended up scaling in the wrong dimensions. The hole is too high now. As you can see, the hole, or is it? No, actually, maybe it's okay. The hole's bigger. So now if I go back to my solid and I rotate my uniseal in X by 180 again, then when I plant it down, it should fit snugly. It's not that bad actually. G, C. Alright, except it's off. And I've got to move it over like that. Okay. Excellent. So there's my uniseal, and my uniseal is supposed to be black. I don't know why it's not black, but if I go to look at material preview, it shows up as black. Alright, well, I've got to do the same thing for this pipe, which I messed up. So it's always good to learn a few things by messing up. So I'm going to call this one, this uniseal is now going to be called uniseal 4-inch, which actually has a 5-inch hole. And I'm going to take it and duplicate it and bring it over here, and it's going to be that one. This new one's going to be called uniseal. Where's that new one again? This one here is known as